Of course. So my name is Rachel Minns. My husband is in the Royal Navy, and I am a certified bookkeeper and money mentor with my own business, Flourish Bookkeeping.
Okay, amazing. And so you live in Turkey, you're stationed out there at the moment.
Yes, we are. We're currently stationed in Turkey. We've been here for 2 years. We've got another 6 months to go, and we absolutely love it. It's a beautiful country.
Really? So I've been on holiday to Turkey, but I can't imagine living there. What's it like then? Because it must get really unbearably hot in the summer.
So I think when we took this posting, I almost didn't pack a winter coat because I thought, oh, it's Turkey, it's going to be fine. But where we live, so Izmir is an hour's flight from Istanbul, and right now it doesn't get above like 5 degrees. It's actually quite cold.
Oh, it's cold.
Yeah, so my children, but then in the summer it gets to like 45 where we are, 40, 45. It's such a beautiful place to live because you actually get the seasons, which I didn't think we'd get either. So many, many moons ago, I studied law at university and quickly realized it was not for me. And then I moved into events and I really enjoyed like managing the budget of an event and doing all that. Then I moved into business support and supporting a team of 15 with a huge multi-million pound budget for a big company. I loved it. But then I had, oh, that sounds bad. We then had our daughter at the start of COVID, and I just knew I didn't want to go back to that environment. It was when I taken a step back from it, I was like, actually, that was quite a toxic place to work. I didn't really enjoy it. So I decided to retrain. And now my mum's been a bookkeeper for my whole life. So I knew what it involved. My dad's a farmer, so I'd see my mum do like my dad's books. And I decided that I would retrain because I love numbers. I love that aspect of it. And when I was training, I found that I particularly enjoyed not just like the day-to-day aspect of bookkeeping, but everything else. So like planning out your cash flow, looking at your budget, how can you become more profitable? And that's where the spark came. When we actually did my last exam, when I was on a birthing ball for my second child, and I was just like, and I had an invigilator watching me being like, please no. I was like, and then 2 days later she was born, but I was like, please just let me finish my exam. And then I've now got clients who I do virtual bookkeeping for, and I've got clients who I have in a great coaching program where I teach them how to do their own finances because they may have a bookkeeper, but they're like, I want to know how to do it myself. How do I look at my cash flow? How do I look at my budget? How do I map out, like, know that if I'm investing in something, it's a really good idea for me? Just because it seems exciting doesn't mean it is, doesn't mean it's going to make you any more money. So that's where I kind of really like delved into what I love doing, which I work with women because I found that women tend to have a belief that they're really bad at maths, whether that's come from school, and then you go to like Waterstones or wherever, and you look for financial books, and they're really masculine. And so that's why I found that I like the energy of working with women. That's why I started working with women.
So it sounds really interesting, and actually I could probably do with picking your brains at some point, because I, have side hustles and things like that. So in the military community, obviously, it is really hard for women to hold down a career and to have a job. And you've set something up for yourself, I guess, that you can travel with. You work from home, you work to your own schedule. And I know a lot of military wives do that, or military spouses, military partners, like me, have these kind of side hustles just to make a bit of money. And I imagine there are people out there as well that don't do that but want to, like they have ideas. So if I was someone sat here with an idea and I wasn't sure how to bring it to life, what would be the first kind of thing to consider in creating a side hustle or trying to generate income, I suppose, is the main thing, isn't it?
So from like a bookkeeping point of view, as soon as you start earning money, or even before you start earning money from your side hustle, make sure you get a separate bank account. It does not need to be a business bank account because they charge you money, unless of course you're a limited company, then you do need one. But otherwise, just get a different bank account so that when you come to doing your tax return, when you come to doing your your bookkeeping, everything just feels really seamless. But I would just say, like, for me, I actually started working with a coach. I work with Susie Olivier from Mothers of Enterprise, and I just wanted to have that guidance around how do I do this? I've got a great idea. I know that I'm good at finance. I know that I'm good at bookkeeping, but I don't know how to make the idea come onto the page.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to help with. Like, how do I build the support system? How do I build everything else around me so that I can do what I'm good at?
And how will a coach help with that?
So she helped me to firstly manage, like, deal with my mindset. I had so many gremlins. I believe that although I knew I was good, I don't think I believed that deep down that I was good. I think I was really nervous about it all. And then she helped me like build all the functions. So I build for example, my funnel. So if you were to get my dream income goal calculator, then you would get an email from me for 5 days. So just like all of those aspects about how do I do this? Why do I do this? And then looking at like my social media. So she's just been that person. I've now been with her for 3 years in May, and it's just been a life-changing help and event. And whenever it comes up to my renewal, I have a chat with my husband. He's like, she's so good for you. She's kind of like your business partner, where you run an idea and she's like, I think you're just grabbing at straws because you're nervous. I think, and I find it easier to say to my husband, oh no, you're wrong. Like, of course you're wrong. Whereas with someone else who's like, she's got your best interest at heart, but also she's not your spouse, and she can go. And that's what I found is just so valuable, is that like accountability. I wouldn't be doing half things I was doing. I'd have the idea, but I wouldn't follow it through unless someone was like, you said you're going to do, have you done it?
Yeah.
So that's what I've really benefited from.
So you think coaching is like super valuable to help someone just where they're having fears or doubts or something, to just push through and actually achieve something, to set goals and do it, because that is really hard. I've had some coaching, and I find it incredible too. It's why I'm still doing these podcasts, to be honest, because I have the little voice in my head telling me that it's a load of rubbish, no one listens to it, and who do you think you are, kind of thing. And my coach, I then have my coach counteracting that, saying if one person benefits from listening to that and getting the advice, and that's amazing, and just keep going. So I agree, coaching is amazing. So starting up a business, you've got an idea, you've got a separate bank account, and you've got a coach. But what I'm interested in is what your website says is about a business that's making money. So you're generating sales, but you can look at like the bookkeeping and the accounting to kind of generate more profit from that. Like, what do you mean? How does that work?
So the thing which I find the most, and I think the best way to explain this, is when I start working with a client, particularly like virtual bookkeeping or in my group coaching programs, they'll say to me, oh, my profit margin is X. Or typically what I will find is my sales are, I didn't ask about your sales, I wanted to know what your profit margin was. Now, what happens is the more money that comes into your business, your expenses grow, either because you take your eye off the ball, which is human nature, or you just think, oh, I'll get that one more thing that will really help. And so the first thing I get everyone to do when I start working with them is like, open your bank account. I want you to go through everything. And if anything makes you go, what is that? I want you to write it down and go through it, because your expenses are the easiest way for you to increase your profit. Like the number one thing is go in there. So, and really start working out, do I actually need that? Is that valuable? How's that impacting me? What's that doing? Okay, how about I try the free version for a month? Do I miss the paid version? So, for example, Canva have recently announced they are increasing their prices massively. What you could do is say, I'm going to try the free version. Do I miss the paid version? Yes or no? And then other companies, so I use a CRM system called Kartra, and Kartra offered me an offer of something like $2,000 upfront, or $5,000 if I paid monthly. I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. So it's all about like looking at all the aspects. How can I make my money? What can I just slightly tweak? What do I need everything? And then really the number one thing I also see a lot of is not pricing for profit. So you're pricing and you're like, I think I'm doing really well here. But I always say, like, your suppliers have definitely increased their prices. We're in a cost of living crisis. When did you last look at those? And then also think about like your Etsy fees. Etsy charge a lot of money for you to advertise with them. So that's effectively what you're doing. And that can eat away before you even know it. If you haven't thought about that, and I'm not saying pass that on to the client or to your customer, but I'm thinking always have that in the back of your head. Etsy are taking, I think it's nearly 9% now. It's a lot of money.
Etsy's tricky because they if you put the cost of your product, let's just say 20 quid for something, but they will charge their fees on the 20 quid plus VAT. So they don't charge the fees on the amount that you're getting. They add the tax on top, and then they charge their fees on top of that, which I think is really tricky, isn't it? It's sneaky, really.
It is. And I always say to my clients, the sooner you can get off Etsy, the better, because they are
Yeah.
really impacting your profit. Yes, you might think it's hard to build a website, and yes, you are getting traction from Etsy, but I would always say, like, really look at your stats. Etsy's split out so many reports. Try and see where your customers are coming from. Are they coming from your social media and then going to Etsy, or are they finding you through the Etsy directory? That's what you want to start, because if it's coming from you, then just send them to a Wix page or a Shopify page. Stop giving Etsy all your money.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's tricky about Etsy as well, so I did set up an Etsy store called Married to the Military, and it got banned within 24 hours, and I had an email saying, you are banned from Etsy basically forever, and if you try and set up an account under another name, we'll know it's you and we'll close that as well.
Oh, wow.
And it's because their bots, their like AI bots, picked up military, which is, I don't know, goes against their policies. So this led me down a bit of a rabbit hole of like Googling this, like, what the hell, this can't be right, surely I've got to have a chance to fix it, blah blah blah. And there are so many people from Google searches that have lost their whole livelihood because it's based on Etsy, and then they've done something once, a minor thing that's perfectly innocent, but has been picked up by the bots, and they've just been blocked with no notice, and all of a sudden they've lost their income, they've lost their living. And it terrifies me that that could happen, that they could just wipe it out from under someone. So I agree with you, really, is to just stay away from Etsy, because it's quite dangerous in that sense, because it can just take everything away from you overnight.
It's and also the way that they run, I believe, to do with GDPR. You can't download the email list and put it into your email list, so you can't actually own those emails. So you haven't got because the biggest asset you could ever have in business is your own email subscribers, because Instagram could close you, Etsy could close you, everyone could close you, but you own those email addresses, which you can email whenever you want. So I always say, like, Etsy are great to start off with, but as soon as you can get off it, get off it.
Yeah, definitely. So because I think a lot of side hustles that people have do tend to be creative, don't they? Really, because I don't know what other kinds of side hustles people could do that aren't creative, teaching, and I don't know, educating and digital downloads and things like that, but mostly. But yeah, I use Shopify, and I think it's great. It's all automated, everything's built in templates, and it's 25 quid a month. I've got the basic one, but I think that's quite worth it, unless you think, is there a different package I should be on?
So I think, like Shopify, their fees are a lot cheaper, and I just think it's a lot better. I don't know about the user experience the other end, but I would say that from what I see financially, head towards Shopify. I think it's so much better.
Yes, and there's so many free resources online, even just YouTube. If you Google setting up a Shopify site, there's so many videos that just take you through step by step, and that's all I did. And it took me probably about a week of just doing like half an hour to an hour a day, just a little bit here and there to get it set up. So it was really straightforward, which was great. Okay, so to take a business that's turning over into profit, you've really got to look at your expenses and be ruthless on what you need and what you don't need. See, I just did this actually because I was paying for Zoom. And the reason I was paying for Zoom for these podcasts is because my Teams, I don't know, it was playing up and there wasn't a record. The record button disappeared. And I was like, where's the record button gone? So I was like, God's sake, I'm going to have to pay for Zoom. And then really all I had to do was get my arse in gear and figure out how to get this record button back. It was something in the settings, but for a couple of months I didn't do it. And then I looked at my bank and I was like, God, Zoom is so expensive. And that kind of spurred me on to sit down and just Google where's the record button gone on Teams. And it
Exactly.
just took me through step by step. And I was like, right, cancel that direct debit now. But you're right, it's so important because these little things add up. And I'm a bit nervous now that you've said Canva are putting their fees up. I didn't see that. So I'm going to look into that.
So they should have emailed you if it applies to you.
Oh, I don't read them. Oh, so bad.
So I would definitely Google and just see if it does apply to you. The reason why I kind of found out about it was because huge social media content creators had come out and been like, Canva, this is not how you tell someone. And it was like, they were like, this is not how you tell someone that you're going to increase their prices, just send them a blanket email. So that's how I found out about it, and I did a bit of research around it. So I would always say, like, expenses and price for profit, always think about. So I have this free download that everyone can get. It's called your dream income goal calculator. It's about understanding what do you need to make to pay yourself, and it's thinking about like that with your pricing for profit. When you're making your prices up, the biggest thing that I see is your money mindset gets in the way of what you should be charging. So either you think, oh, I wouldn't pay more than £20 for this, but actually most people might pay £30 for that. Your gremlins and your self-belief is getting in the way of you making more money. And whenever you're doing your market research around your products or your services, don't just look at one person, look at lots, see what everyone's charging, because someone might have a, like money mindset gremlins, they might be offering something very different to what you're offering. And so really start thinking and drilling down into every single aspect and just seeing. And also, something which I always say is like, just trial and error, just trial it. If it doesn't work, you can always, but always give it like, I think the strategy wizards always say like, give something 90 days, try it for 90 days. After 90 days, you haven't done what you wanted to do. What can you tweak? Don't do a drastic change, but what can you tweak and try again for another 90 days? So yeah, think about your pricing, think about your expenses, and really like drill down into your bookkeeping, and being on top of it is how you're going to make more money.
So this is fascinating, what you call money mindset gremlins, because I'm really into this at the moment. I've been doing work on myself, like my paradigm with money. But one of the things that come up for me recently is that costing my products. So, or worried that it was too expensive and no one would pay it. But actually doing the research, it was on par with the market basically. So I don't know, it was just a very negative thing in my mind about it. So that's interesting. But the other thing as well that I've been working on is I kind of learned that there are three kinds of people with money. There are people that are in a habit of spending more than they have, people in a habit of breaking even, and people in a habit of spending less than they have. And so if you're in that kind of deficit habit, doesn't matter how much money you get, you'll always spend more than you get. You'll always find something to spend it on because that's your habit. And I find that these habits do cross over into business as well.
I see them a lot in business. So your personal money mindset, you may be like, my business is different, that's separate. Your personal money mindset will come into business, whether you like it or not. So if you come from like a scarcity mindset, you're like, I have to have £10,000 in my bank account, or I get really stressed out. Okay, but actually, if you invested £2,000 into something that you really need, you could see that skyrocket. And it's like that fear. And then there's, like you said, there's people who spend way above their means, and they may earn really good money, but what you're seeing them do is like just give it all away because they feel really uncomfortable holding money, and they're just like almost throwing it at anything. And they'll be off buying like handbags they don't need and shoes they don't need because they don't realize that their money mindset is going, you don't deserve this, get rid of it. And it's so intriguing. And if anyone's looking to read a book, one of the best books I've read is it's called Lucky Picture of the Bee, and it's I've got it here somewhere. Let's see if I've got it. She's not here right now. And it's by Denise Duffield Thomas. She's an Australian, and it's fascinating. It's such a good read. She's like the money mindset, like queen bee.
I'm taking notes here because it's fascinating.
Rich, lucky pitch, but with a bee. And it's brilliant. And she just walks you through like maybe this is you. And she gives you loads of examples about how to clear your money mindset, and I just think it's a fabulous read.
Oh, amazing. I'm going to look for that. So I was listening to an audiobook by a guy called Bob Proctor, called Change Your Paradigm, Change Your Life. And that's where I learned it. And it was really interesting because I learned that actually my money mindset comes from my childhood.
Yeah.
So you can't just, it's not something you can change overnight. It's
It
like
takes time.
you do have to do some work, like internal work on it, don't you? And like you have to be aware. So I've been really conscious about purchases and things like that, and thinking, no, that's my paradigm, that's my money mindset, and I'm changing it. And it's it's constant work really, but it's interesting. But I'm a spender. Is my paradigm, but no, I don't identify as a spender anymore. I'm changing and turning it around, but it's such an interesting like part of people's nature is their money mindset for sure. It's really
So interesting,
fascinating.
and it typically does come from childhood, and you may not even know that it's there, and then suddenly you go back. And so I get my clients to go through like a journey of their money history, and I've done it a few times, because you think that you've cleared it, but the thing is, when you have cleared it, you haven't, because you're always making new money stories. So say you're earning, let's say, £2,000 a month in your business, and then you're like, my goal is £3,000 a month in my business. Your money mindset's going to go, no, you don't know. No, you're safe at 2. Don't go to 3.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, okay, now I need to work out why I'm scared of 3. What is it about 3?
Yeah.
And that's why you're always rewriting your stories, because even these multi-billionaires will still be rewriting their stories.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing that's interesting is what you say on the surface, or what you're presenting. And you could present like, oh, I'm great with money, or I'm going for 3, I'm on 2 but I'm going for 3, but it's not necessarily what's going on underneath. And you really need to be conscious of that inner voice, don't you, that is really the thing that's guiding everything, not what's presenting to the world.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's, whenever I first speak to my clients about it, they're like, I obviously I want to earn money. And I'm like, yeah, but your ethos and the way you're earning money isn't telling me that, because you're spending really fast, or you're literally just keeping everything in. And one of my clients, I tried to get her to do profit first, where you put money into different pots, and she's like, no, I need to see it in one pot. I was like, no, but this works really well. And she's like, no. And it took us quite a few months to get around, oh, it's a scarcity. She's terrified of not having enough money.
Right.
Because as a child growing up, her parents didn't have enough money to pay the bills, and the thought of not having enough money to pay her bills was terrifying for her. So she did a lot of work, and I was like, I'm not a therapist, I am not that, but I can talk to you about what that feels like. And now she's more comfortable to move money into a tax pot, and move money into a savings pot, and she's like, oh, I get it. I'm like, it's still yours, it's just you don't see it all together.
So is that something that you recommend then, is splitting money out into different areas?
Absolutely. So I always say, move money that you want to pay yourself into an own a drawings pot. So pay yourself pot. Now you don't need to don't need to pull money out of them necessarily, but whenever you get your sales, think, I'm going to move money into this pot, into my drawings pot, and out of my drawings pot, I'm going to pull money out of that whenever I need it, because you don't want to be using your business bank account for your personal expenses. It gets really messy really fast, and you might be like, okay, say you're going to say, I'm going to take 40% of my sales and put them into my drawings pot, that's what I want to pay myself, but I don't really need 40%. Okay, just put out what you need from that pot, but it's building up over time. Always, always, always have a tax pot, because you don't want to get to the tax end of January for self-assessment tax return and just feel sick with worry that you don't have enough money. There's nothing that just ends in people feeling very, very scared.
Yeah.
So I always say, have money for pay yourself from a certain pot. Now, Profit First is a book by Mike Michalowicz, and his idea is that you take profit before you. So right, 9,000 years ago, when we started doing bookkeeping, we would do sales minus expenses equals profits. Whatever's left over is your profit.
Sorry, there's been bookkeeping going on for 9,000 years.
Yes, yeah, I know, it's bonkers. Like it's one of like it's actually a really old profession because people have always been like they could see in the Roman times and well before the Roman
Oh yeah,
times.
that makes sense. Keeping a record of their gold.
Yeah, exactly. So they can
Okay.
see. And we would always take whatever's left over. The problem with that is expenses are like cookie monsters and they eat all the money. So Mike Michalowicz, with his book Profit First, flipped everything on its head and was like, sales minus profit equals expenses. So you take a small proportion of profit, like we're talking like 1% of your sales, and put it into a little pot, which slowly over time builds up. Now from that profit pot, you can either let it build, or you can just take a little bit each quarter just to pay yourself like a treat. Because humans are, we're reward-based people. And if we can have that little treat, like, oh, I went and got my nails done, or I went for a
Yeah.
spa day, or whatever it was, you can see the benefit. But the main point is that you're starting to tell yourself that money is there for a rainy day, that money is there. So you're making the profit be the priority in your business and not the expenses.
Yeah. Yeah, that does make sense. Do you know what I've always thought should be a thing? That in a bank account, you should be able to file your money. I don't know if
Yeah.
that is a thing, but it should be.
So do you mean like into like little pots?
Yeah, like so what you're talking about. So it doesn't have to be physical pots, but just for you to see on the screen, you could say, right, I'm going to file so much percent into that folder, so much percent into that folder. And so you can see your money split, and you know what you've got.
So Revolut, Starling, Monzo, Tide all do that.
Do they?
Yeah, so the traditional banks like Barclays, Lloyds, HSBC don't, but the more new modern ones, online based ones do, which is
Oh,
really
gosh.
good because you can put it into pots, and then typically you can choose a pot to have a higher percentage interest rate because they want you to like have them. Yeah, so you can look at like I think it could be another one. I'm not sure the other one is, but I know that Starling and Monzo and Revolut and Tide all offer that.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't know that. So that's a really good tip then for people with a bit of a side hustle, but their business accounts, are they all personal?
No, personal.
Oh, okay. Gosh, that's amazing. I
I
might
think
look
most
into
of them are free unless you
this.
want extra benefits or if you want a bit more interest. So Revolut, because I'm overseas, I've got a Revolut personal account which I do pay for. I think I pay like £7 a month for my Revolut personal account. But because I pay a little bit extra money each month, I get 5% on my savings. So it's much better than you'd ever get with a high street bank.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, that's a really good tip. Okay, amazing. So all that stuff around money mindset is really interesting. So that is again something that someone with a side hustle or someone that wants to set up a side hustle, it's something that they need to be aware of, and they need to be working on constantly alongside that to make sure that the business is profitable and not just a profitable business, but that their money's working, because you always want your money to be working for you, don't you? You don't just want it sat there, doing nothing. You want it to be working, earning interest, and doing good things for you. So bookkeeping habits. So
Yeah.
that's really important to keep on top of. So I have recently liquidated a business, which was a horrific process, to be honest. It was very stressful, very upsetting. Had to make people redundant. It was quite a big business. It was a children's mental health service that ran out of funding. But actually, apart from all of the stress of having to close down a really vital service and make people redundant, I was so worried about the liquidation process. But it wasn't so bad because of the bookkeeping and everything was in order. There was a cash book, there was all the receipts and invoices, there was everything. It was all there, all of the contracts. Actually, to the point where a liquidator that, they're quite scary people, was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You've made it so easy. Everything's here. I can see everything. It's really transparent. So the process was quite smooth. So it's so important. I mean, no amount of bookkeeping would have prevented that because it was a not-for-profit company and the funding got cut. There was not really much we could do about it. But it did help in the long run take a lot of stress out of a situation that was inevitable. But good bookkeeping from a profit-making company, you can avoid getting yourself in that situation, because you can see into the future essentially, can't you, with good bookkeeping?
Exactly. And I think bookkeeping is something which people don't want to do. They don't enjoy it. And I just say, like, if you can just set aside a little bit a week to get it organized, get on top of it, then when it comes around to your tax return, that's going to feel like a breeze. When you're trying to work out, okay, how to make more money, you can look at your expenses. And when you're sat there and you're looking at your receipts, you're like, why am I spending money on this? When did I last use this? And you can ask yourself those questions a lot quicker than waiting to the end of the year. And I would say, if you leave your bookkeeping to the end of the year, you're going to realize maybe you did make a profit, but you could have made a lot more of a profit. Whereas if you're in it all the time, you can start asking yourself those questions. So I always say, like, have a money meeting with yourself once a month with your business, where you look at your bookkeeping. Is it up to date? Okay, what do I need? Think about your expenses. If you've got a budget, that's when you start looking at your budget. Think about your cash flow. How's your cash going to flow in and out of your business for the next month ahead? What do you need to think about? Is there any big bills coming up? Is your insurance coming up? What is it? And just taking that time at the start, when you first do them, they're going to feel really challenging and quite like, oh, this is so boring. This is not what I want to do. But when you get better and better and better at them, you're like, actually, I saw the impact last month because I wasn't nervous that bill was coming. It wasn't a surprise. I had the money to go. Or actually, I'm really on track for my goals. That feels amazing. Like, my budget is really working for me. So I always say, like, your bookkeeping needs to be a priority in your business. It's not just a thing that you've got to do for the tax, HMRC. It's like, it has to be done. If you are really serious about making more money in your business, then you need to be all over it.
But it sounds scary, right? Because I'm not an accountant or a qualified bookkeeper or anything. I learned on the fly. And so, but when you start saying to people, cash book, quarterly management accounts, profit and loss, what does your balance sheet look like? I mean, these are the things that on Dragon's Den, even the most kind of experienced, confident accounting professionals kind of quake in their boots, when the dragons are there saying to them, we want your numbers, what's this and this, it's scary stuff. So breaking all that down, what is the minimum that someone should be doing?
So as the absolute minimum, it is a legal requirement that you have accurate and up-to-date records. That's a law in the UK. Yeah. And so as a bare minimum, please don't use paper and pen because it gets so complicated. Just get like a Google sheet and just list, I received, I have spent. But never forget, if you're using something like Etsy, then you have your Stripe fees. And Stripe fees are something which you want to account for. Think about everything. And then just keep your receipts in like a Google Drive. As a bare minimum, have a spreadsheet of everything you received, everything you spent, and then have a document, a Google Drive attached to that sheet where you can be like, here's all my receipts. So if you, when it came to your tax return, you can be like, there you go. It will actually make your accountant's bill a lot less because you've got everything organized for them. Yeah. And then just in that Google sheet, just write a description. For example, stationery, bought pens. Just so that you can see exactly what you've done.
Exactly, because if something was questioned from like 3 years ago, you can go back and you can see exactly what that was for. Like, oh, we needed that, it was for this.
And you need to keep your receipts for at least 5 years as a sole trader. So it's, and one thing I always say is always keep your business bank and your business insurance, because forever. Because someone, not that you hope this will never happen to you, but if someone was to sue you, it could be whenever. So always keep a copy of your insurance.
Okay, so the minimum, spreadsheet with your transactions and a Google Drive with the receipts. And you can do it as basic or as fancy as you like. You can cross-reference everything if you want to and all of that stuff. So what about a cash flow forecast?
So I always say that cash flow forecast is really, really useful. For small businesses, I would say like 12 weeks ahead. So a cash flow, for those listening, is I want you to imagine a wave coming in. So as the wave comes in, that's your cash coming into your business. And as it goes out, that's the cash leaving your business. So in the ideal world, we want the wave coming in to be bigger. There'll be times when it is the other way around. Maybe you've got a yearly expense going out, which is really expensive, but it's cheaper that way than doing it monthly. So if you think about all those things, when you do your cash flow, you're thinking about your projected sales for that week or month ahead. And then you're thinking about your expenses. So you're drilling down into oh, I need to buy printer ink this month. I buy it monthly, for example. Your insurance monthly. What other bills do you have? Buying your products and your services to sell. Because you want to understand, how is your cash working in your business? What can you adjust and tweak so that you can make more money in your business moving forward? Because nothing is more stressful than opening your bank account up and thinking, oh my goodness, how have I not got enough money? I don't understand what's happened. And that's why I always say to people, get into a habit of opening up do this for your personal account too. Open up your bank account and look at it every day. Don't do anything, just look at the number and get comfortable, because something that I see a lot of is people don't even want to look at their money. They don't even want to know what's there. They find that really scary. Just open it, look, close it. That's all you got to do. But it just starts to get you really comfortable with what's happening in your business, because what you see in your bank account is great, but a cash flow forecast allows you to understand what's happening with that money. Are you going to be spending it? Are you going to be getting more? What's that look like? Because your bank account is just a small reflection of your whole business.
Yeah. But it can be hard to forecast sales, right? Because you're guessing. So how does that work?
So I always say, like, try and take past data, unless of course you ran a big promotion and like, just try and like see, okay, roughly. And what you can do is you can go back and be like, actually I made this. So you can tweak and adjust so that as you do it more and more and more, you get more comfortable and know, okay, around Christmas I have like this peak, but January and February I don't. Like it goes really quiet for me in my product-based business. So you want to start thinking like, okay, so actually in October, November, December, I need to save money for January, February, March. That's the what you want to start using your cash flow for. Is like, when do I need this money? Where should I be saving it? Okay, actually, I know that January, February, March, I'm not going to earn as much money, but I've still got my expenses. I still need to pay them. I still need to pay. Maybe you've got a VA or whatever it is. I still need to pay those people. So I need to make sure, and those services, make sure that I've still got enough money.
Okay. And what if someone is sat at home thinking about a side hustle? I don't know, they knit or crochet or whatever, and they think, right, I'm going to sell these little crochet octopuses on Etsy, and they buy all their yarn and they spend hours, they crochet like 1,000 octopuses, all different colors, all different sizes. They take all their product photos, they upload it all to Etsy, and then tumbleweed, nothing, no sales. What can they do about that? Is it just marketing?
So I would say what you want to start doing is like thinking, how else can I sell these? So I recently did a talk on my Facebook group about Christmas markets and about investing in them and understanding what you need to be making, understanding your demographic. What does that look like? So on average, if you have a stall at a Christmas market and you're selling and your ideal audience is coming to the Christmas market, of the footfall that they advertise, the average is roughly 5% of that footfall will buy from you. So we're talking actually quite small numbers in the grand scheme of what they advertise, because typically Christmas markets say 10,000 people, but only 5% might actually buy from you.
Okay.
So think about how you can sell them differently. What can you do differently?
Okay, that's interesting. But so coming to thinking of military wives, so military bases do a lot of like markets and fairs and stalls and things. Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I really do. I think just getting your name out there and just seeing what happens. And maybe if someone doesn't buy, you could say, oh, but if you sign up to my email list, I'll send you a 10% off for next time. Just getting them into your world and trying to keep them in your world so they go, oh yeah, I do actually remember seeing she had amazing products.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would always say, like, always get out and about, get your name out there. I don't personally use TikTok, but I hear a lot of things about TikTok. And Instagram, of course, and Facebook.
Yeah, okay. So it's all about the marketing and the social media to kind of help generate those sales. But once the sales coming in, it's just so important to know what to do with that money. And I guess it can be easy as well for someone to be like, oh my God, I've just made all this money. I've had a big sale. And then just to go out and spend all the money on I'm going to buy a load more stock, or I'm going to get some more craft materials and make like a load more, and then they don't sell, and it's like, oh gosh, all that profit I made is just sat there tied up in stock now, or materials. So it's about awareness, isn't it? And I think this is probably where what you're saying, where a coach might be able to come in to help keep someone on track with something like that. Gosh, it's so interesting. Oh, okay. So what's been the most rewarding moment for you in your business so far?
So I work with a range of women, some who are heading towards seven figures and some who are just starting out. And one of the most rewarding things I've seen is working with women in my group coaching program, where I walk them through how to understand their finances. And in my first cohort, I had a few ladies there who were product based, and one of them was like, "Oh, I know I'm making a profit." I was like, "That's great. Can we just put the numbers into the spreadsheet and just have a play?" And then it transpired that she was effectively paying people £2.19 every single time to buy from her, because she hadn't thought about her Etsy fees, or like then it came through Stripe, and then
Oh
Stripe took
no.
their fees, and it was like the moment of, oh my goodness. So then she said, well, no one wants to pay any more than I'm paying. What's the point? So I said, well, can we work on your money mindset? So we spoke about that, and then it transpired that she didn't believe that her products were worth any more because she wouldn't pay any more. I was like, yeah, but your service, your products are amazing. I'd pay more, and I'm
Yeah.
literally your ideal client. I have small children. And then I said, like, just go out there and just talk to people. And then she upped her prices, and she hasn't seen a dip in her sales. Oh, like, actually, it's like that, like, reassuringly expensive. She's not ridiculously more than anyone else, but she's a little bit more because actually she does offer something a bit different.
Yeah.
And so seeing her business turn around has just been so beautiful and rewarding for me.
Oh God, that's so amazing. It's nice that you get that feeling as well from seeing other people succeed, which is really lovely.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, what a nice story. And again, it's just a reminder to people that their product and their services are worth it, and they're valuable, and you're worth it as well, I suppose. So you charge what you deserve and people will pay it because they'll see that too. And if they don't, then they're not the right customer. And the right customer is out there, aren't they, really? You just have to find them
Yes.
and draw them in. So we've got Christmas around the corner. But this probably won't go out until like after Christmas. So, but I know like a lot of military families do struggle financially because they are forced into a position of living on one wage. And I know there's a bit of a misconception out there that, oh, you get a free house and everything's paid for you, but that is just not the case. And when you're forced into a situation of living on one wage, it can make things financially really difficult, can't it? And
Yeah.
Christmas is obviously a really expensive time of year. And this podcast will probably go out in January when people they're going to be feeling the hit of everything that they spent at Christmas. And January is a long month. So what could you say to people to kind of help them at this situation? Everyone's expecting their credit card bills. Isn't it like the day where there's the most suicides in the country or something because of these big bills that come in? How can people prepare for that, given that Christmas has already been and gone and it's too late? They've spent the money and they're dreading the bill.
Yeah. And it's so hard because in the ideal world, you'd say, you'd create a budget and you'd put money aside each month ahead of time. So I'm saying, like, when you're listening to this now, think about next Christmas. You already want to, in January, think, from that money, what can we save? And then try and spend within that. And I know it's so much easier said than done. I get it. Like, you want to give your child or your partner the best Christmas ever. But when you get that credit card statement and it fills you with utter dread, think, what can I do? How can I contribute towards this? And I will always say, like, everyone has something to give the world. You've got a skill that maybe you haven't tapped into before. Maybe there's something which you could offer. Maybe, I don't know, let's say like you go somewhere and you're an expert at it, you really understand it. Could you create a guide and put it on Pinterest and sell it for £5? Like, there's always something that you can sell money and make money for while following your partner's career. And maybe you've got children and you're raising the children, but what can you do? Even if it's just like a little bit of money extra each month, it will really help. And then it will click on that credit card. And it may feel like it's taking its time, but actually you're going to get such a sense of like, oh God, I did that. I created something. Everyone's got something. Everyone's got a skill. Just trying to work out what it is. Maybe you could tutor. Maybe you could, I was saying earlier, that there's so many options out there.
Yeah. Okay. So definitely a side hustle. It's basically getting more money in.
Yeah.
So you are, if you're in debt and you're dreading that bill in January, you're living beyond your means.
And I said with love, but yes. And like we've all been there. Well, maybe not everyone, but I know that I've been there where I've been like, put it on the credit card, I'll deal with that in January. And then in January comes, you're like, oh my goodness.
And it's a vicious cycle, right? Because it's all very well saying do your Christmas shopping in the January sales, but you have to break that cycle. They've spent all their money
Yeah.
coming
And then
up to
generally you haven't got
December.
the money to spend it again. And that's why I always say, like,
Exactly.
just try and make a promise to yourself. Move it into a pot which you can't touch, or even if you can touch it, make a promise that you won't touch it. Maybe
Yeah.
set up another free bank account where you just move that money to, and it's in there and you don't touch it, and you just let it build. That could pay
Yeah.
for maybe your Christmas meal or your presents.
Yeah.
And yeah, just start siphoning off money and putting it in there.
I think if living on a camp is quite good. I mean, I sell a lot of things on Vinted, but when we lived on a camp, there'd be local selling pages.
Yeah.
So we would sell a lot of stuff and also buy secondhand as well. So
Oh yeah, of
especially
course.
from the Americans on camp where they had quite a big turnover and they would buy everything when they got there and then sell everything when they left. So we got some cool stuff. Like my baby pram was like 50 quid and it was amazing. It was lush. So that's quite a good thing as well, I think. But it's an opportunity to sell. And there were a couple of people when we lived on a camp that did catering. So there was a Thai lady, she did like Thai takeaway meals, which were lush. And then another lady that loved baking. So you could buy her like baked goods and things on camp. So if you live on a camp, it's I think a good way to start up a little side hustle because you've got a clientele right there that are
Yeah.
looking for home comforts and things. So even if it's baking or cooking, that's your thing, you've got people there, haven't you, ready to buy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's always something that you can offer. I just firmly believe that there is.
Yeah. And I don't know, like people are making money doing things that you might think in your head, how can you make money doing that? Like, I did a like online course with a lady from America called the Product Boss. It was like a 5-day free course, and there were people earning like $10,000 a month from these little homemade hair clips. Like, anyone can do that. And they
Yeah.
sell them for like $10 each. And if I was selling little homemade hair clips, I think no one's going to pay $10. You can go down to Claire's Accessories and buy like a pack of 5 for a quid. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but people are paying it. So there's always something, I think. It's probably a good idea to look at stores like Etsy and Pinterest with some interest and think, oh, I could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just see and just see what you can do and what can you offer. And I think Etsy is a really good starting place because you can obviously see how many sales that particular item has had. So you can really
Yeah.
do your research and think, oh, actually, I could absolutely do that. And I reckon I
Yeah.
could charge that amount. Okay, actually, I might charge a bit more, and think about what you can do.
The other thing I think as well in the military community is for people just to get behind other people with a side hustle. I always feel like it's free to support a small business. All you have to do is comment and share or subscribe to their emails or something. It doesn't cost you anything, but it actually really helps that business. So I always do make a point of supporting other small businesses online because it really does help and it doesn't cost anything. So I think that's quite important as well. If everyone just gets behind each other to
Yeah, we're all in the
encourage that.
same boat. Let's all support one another. I had someone
Exactly.
who she came to me for our virtual bookkeeping, and I was like, "Where did you find out about me from?" She's like, "Oh," she mentioned her name, and I was like, "I've never worked with her." And then she said, "Oh no, she's followed you on Instagram for the last 3 years." I was like, "Oh wow!" But she'd been telling her friends, "Oh, she does virtual bookkeeping." I was like,
Yeah.
"That's amazing! Thank you so much!" Like, causing it, I don't know that name. Why don't I know that name? Like, and
Yeah.
it wasn't someone I'd worked with before. It was someone she'd just seen me and she liked my content.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. So definitely, I think just supporting each other is so important as well, because as you say, we're all in it together. A bit of a pun, Navy wives, we're all in the same boat, but
Yeah.
we are in that sense. So yeah, helping each other, it doesn't have to cost anything. So yeah, it's really just about digging deep, finding what you're good at, and looking at bringing in, generating some income somehow, something you can do from home, do from your computer, using your skills, research online, find out what that is. If you're lacking in confidence, look up a coach. I think there are schemes out there as well for free coaching for military spouses. I'm sure like
Yeah,
Recruit for Spouses have something.
Recruit for Spouses definitely do. And if you're looking at starting businesses, Millspo, run by Jess Sands, she's got lots of free resources. And then the coach I work with, she's a military spouse and she has free resources on her website. So there's so many things that you can dive into and look at.
Yeah, there's so many resources out there, but it does require you to be proactive, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
you can't just have an idea and sit on it or think, oh, maybe tomorrow, or I'm not sure. You have to go for it, and you have to go all in, really, don't you?
You just got to be brave and be like, the worst that can happen is I have a massive learning lesson. Like that's how I
Yeah.
took it. I was like, I'm going to learn so much. I've learned so much about myself. I don't even recognize. I'm like, I joke with my coach that I'm on like Rachel 2.50 or something because I just don't even recognize her because I've become much more confident and I've learned all these new skills. And that's what you're going to learn. It's like you go on this journey to create your own business. You're going to learn so many new things about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And that you just the feelings you get from doing it and achieving something, and when you get that first sale, it's just like, oh my God, this is
It's so
amazing.
exciting. It's the
Yeah.
best feeling because you're like, I've done that. I've earned that.
But it's not even the sale, it's the feedback. Like when
Yeah.
you get some lovely feedback from someone about how they really enjoy your product or whatever it is that they've got from you, it just gives you all the good feelings. It's amazing.
It's just, I remember the first time I got a testimonial, I just sat there and cried because I was just like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. It was just, I knew that I was good at what I did, but having someone like, not validate's the wrong word, but having someone go like, thank you so much. I was like, oh gosh, thank you. Like that's just, thank you for taking the time to thank me. That's really kind,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing.
Absolutely, it does. It's all the good feelings, and that's what we want at the end of the day for us and for the people. At the end of the day, we want to provide a product or a service that are going to help people move forward with their lives and their goals. So, what is your message, your takeaway message from this podcast interview? What would that be for people listening?
So I would say that anyone can do their own finances, irrelevant of what you believe. You can absolutely do it. You can absolutely run your own business. I know that you can. It's just about having that confidence to look at your numbers and trust yourself that you can do this. And if you ever get stuck, to ask for support. So for example, I offer coffee and cash flow, which is totally free in my Facebook group every other Thursday. And I let you vote beforehand about what you want me to talk about, and you can ask questions. And it's just that. So I've done pricing for profit, I've looked at Christmas markets, and then I'm about to put a poll out this week for what to discuss next week. And it's just a really nice system. I also do free sort your finances out sessions on the first Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock, where people come along, and it's a co-working session where you can be like, Rach, how would you code this? I did XYZ, and just sitting there together, you don't even need to talk, camera could be off, your mic's off, but you're just about being together and focusing on finances for that 1 hour a month. And I've seen women really get on top of their finances very quickly because they're doing it.
Okay, so can anyone join that group?
Yes, so I've got a link on my website which you just sign up to, and then you get automatically sent, you get some reminders for every single session up the first Thursday of the month, and then the second and fourth Thursdays are my kind of like live coaching with coffee and cash flow on my Facebook
Lovely.
group.
I will include that link on the podcast ad in January. Gosh, that is really interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I feel like I've learned so much.
That's really kind. Thank you. I'm so grateful for being on here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot. Okay,
thank you so much
great.
for your time.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. It was really lovely speaking to you.
And you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.